Dabble, dabble, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Welcome to Archetype Builds, where we take an archetype, kind of a paragon, a stereotype of something from fantasy or fiction, and we show you how to build it in your Dungeons & Dragons character. As you can tell, today's build is the Witch. So when I talk about a witch, what I really want to focus on is this haggish, kind of like befreckled, swamp-living character that is out, amongst nature, that is doing potions and casting hexes on people. Some properties tend to use witch as like an alternative for just a female spellcaster, and obviously there's a billion options for those in D&D, so I really want to focus in on what D&D would probably call a hag. This character is someone who is able to obviously cast hexes on people, turn people into frogs or newts or toads, some sort of connection to nature, and specifically kind of a darker aspect of nature, a kind of like a rot, and has some ability to work with potions and do other magical spells as well. So let's hop into the build. For race, there's this really perfect lineage released in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft called the Hexblood lineage. It's going to give you a ton of witchiness right up front. You're going to feel immediately like a witch from some sort of movie or TV show. You're going to get some certain things like Eerie Token, which allows you to like take a bit of your hair or like a fingernail and give it to someone and give them certain abilities. They can communicate with you telepathically. You can see from their position. It's very spooky and gross and disgusting. And then you're also going to get Hex Magic, which automatically gives you a disguise self and a hex spell that you can use once per day. But if you have spells, you can use those spell slots to cast those spells as well. Already, you're going to add 2 spells to your repertoire, and we haven't even chosen a class. When doing your stats for this character, it might be tempting to grab something like Wisdom or even Intelligence, but this build really is going to require a lot of charisma on our part. And you can imagine that there are witches, especially villainous witches in movies, that are very persuasive, very good at kind of convincing the hero to go a certain way, or even very deceptive, very proficient at kind of saying one thing but meaning another. And that's what we really want to tap into here. Is less of a charisma in like paladins, like everybody loves me kind of way, but more in like a manipulative, sly, playing to people's intentions kind of charisma. For our class, a lot of really good options here, but again, focusing in on that more like that swampy, naturey, cursing witch, we are going to go with the Warlock class. And we're going to be able to pick our subclass right away at first level, and we are going to snag the Archfey Pact. This is going to kind of put us in touch with nature to a certain extent, right? Archfey are these like large spirits of natural worlds. And I think for us, it's a matter of maybe not so much a like bargain for our soul, so much as we are fully aligned with this nature spirit. We hate civilization and humanity, and we just want to live in our tree root cottage. And so we've made a kind of an even trade amongst equals with this Archfey for magic and spells to help defend your swamp or your area. This is going to add a couple of spells to our spell list that we really love, but we also are going to get some features that are really appropriate for a witch. Features like the Fey Presence, that's going to allow us to choose whether we appear suddenly like incredibly beautiful and glamorous and charm everyone around us, or whether we appear hideous and terrifying and ugly and fear everyone in that same radius. It's this great kind of emergency, because obviously as a caster, you don't want to be surrounded by enemies, but if you become so, it's a fantastic break glass in case of emergency button to push to take on this terrifying, frightful form and have everybody run away from you so that you can continue to cast spells on them. For our cantrips, this is going to be really important because as a warlock, we're only going to have those 2 spell slots. So we're going to want to use one to lock in a great concentration-based curse or hex or debuff. We have the other in case something happens. So the rest of the time we will be using our cantrips. I'm going to recommend for that reason, Chill Touch is a great kind of debuffing the enemy cantrip makes it so that they can't heal if it lands on them, and then poison spray as well. It's great damage, short range, but it feels very witchy to like whoosh and spray out some poison and hit someone nearby. Very fun. I also would recommend, just for utility's sake, grabbing Minor Illusion. There's nothing more tricksy or manipulative than a Minor Illusion, and since you can cast it an unlimited number of times, it's got an unlimited number of applications. For your first level spells, we actually aren't going to touch the Archfey spell list just yet. I think we want to pick up Charm Person, because Charm Person is playing into our kind of charismatic, manipulative nature that we're going so far. And you can easily imagine, witches from movie or TV casting a spell over someone so that all of a sudden they start doing things that they wouldn't ordinarily want to do. And of course, we can't make a witch build without grabbing the first level spell, Witch Bolt. Admittedly, Witch Bolt is not the most powerful spell that you could grab at first level. However, I think it's severely undervalued by a lot of the D&D community. It essentially allows you to make one spell attack to start, and then you've hit this person with your Witch Bolt, and you can use a action each turn to deal its damage again, that kind of the D12. It's giving you the ability, with some amount of active participation on your part, to continuously damage someone that you've hit before, which is a great crippling curse to apply to someone. It's very useful in situations where someone's like running away and maybe they are out of line of sight, but you can continue to apply your Witch Bolt damage to them. And if you want to be a truly heinous witch, this is an excellent interrogation spell where you can kind of apply it once with that one spell slot, and then just each time they tell a lie or they say something you don't like, you apply that damage. Would be a truly villainous thing for your witch to do. Now, you're also going to get some Eldritch invocations in these early levels of Warlock. There is an invocation I think would be really good, and that is the Eldritch Sight invocation. I think that you as a witch, even though you might be low level for now, are still to a certain extent a font of knowledge regarding magic, and kind of the party expert on all things magical and otherworldly. Eldritch Sight simply allows you to cast Detect Magic kind of without using a spell slot, so you can always pop this up whenever you need to investigate whether something is magical, or if you know something is magical, to kind of figure out what spell school it's a part of. Because Warlock has very few spell slots, these invocations that allow you to cast something an unlimited number of times are very, very valuable. For that reason, my candidate for the second invocation is Mask of Many Faces. This is particularly useful if you want to be kind of an infiltrator, someone who is assuming a guise of someone from the enemy's camp, wandering in, talking to people, keeping up that charming deception the whole time, and then, when you finally figured out what you need to know, causing mischief or mayhem or havoc. It might not be to your taste for the witch character that you want, but I have seen Mask of Many Faces used to great effect in many of my campaigns. Since it's an unlimited casting of Disguise Self, you can kind of walk around a corner, cast it, and then walk back as a different person, leading to a lot of interactions where it seems like one NPC is interacting with a dozen others when it's just you playing them from all sides. At third level, we are choosing our Pact boon. This is the kind of extra thing that our patron gives us. And listen, we certainly could do Pact of the Talisman and create a little trinket that we could give out to allies to give them bonuses. We could also do Pact of the Tome and get extra cantrips to make us more versatile outside of combat or when our 2 spell slots are used up. Totally possible. But come on, we're a witch and we need a familiar. So we are going to go with the Pact of the Chain, which gives us an expanded number of options for our familiar. We can choose Imp, Pseudo-Dragon, Quasit, or Sprite for any of those. I think that the Imp has a lot of really fun implications here, but I also think that a witch would likely have a familiar that appears to be like a black cat or a raven or something like that. So you may need to do some reflavoring with these options. If in the previous level you didn't like the sound of Mask of Many Faces, you might be much more interested in the invocation Voice of the Chainmaster to allow you to speak through your familiar and kind of interact with people at a safe distance. I think that's super, super witchy, and especially if you want to start doubling down on this familiar as an aspect of your character design, I think it's a great idea to pick that up at level 2 so that it comes online level 3. At 3rd level here, we are getting 2nd level spells, and so I'm going to recommend that we pick up Ray of Enfeeblement. This is going to add to our list of kind of debuff spells that are made to weaken the enemy. This is going to be especially effective against strength-based big brutes that we come across. If you see any ogres, any giants, I think Ray of Enfeeblement is a fantastic spell to be able to throw out. Really severely undercuts that creature's ability to deal damage. And then I'm also going to recommend Enthrall. I think Enthrall does play well to this kind of deceitful, disguised self-witch who might have certain roles in the party to like interact with the enemy before anyone else does. This is a non-concentration spell, which we love, and it basically just makes a particular target focus on you. So if they fail their saving throw, they have disadvantage to perceive anyone else except for you. It's a great way to be a distraction, to use that spell slot to essentially take someone away from a particular combat, maybe take a guard away from noticing the rest of the party sneaking in, and is a great addition to your toolkit for kind of manipulation and cunning. At 4th level, we can pick up 8 feet. I'm going to assume that we've grabbed our +2 charisma from the Hexblood lineage, maxed out with our point buy, so we are sitting on a 17 charisma, and we could really use a half feat to round that out. One of the half feats that I love for this particular build is Fey Touched. We are already an Archfey Warlock, so it makes perfect sense that we would be Fey Touched as well. This will round up our charisma to an 18, and then we get the Misty Step spell, which is a 2nd level teleportation spell. This is super, super helpful for that mobility and this aspect of covering yourself with mist and then disappearing. Very, very Swamp Witch-like. Perfect. And then we also get another 1st level spell from the Divination or Enchantment School of Magic. We're going to use this particular spell to grab Tasha's Hideous Laughter, which isn't normally available to Warlocks, but Tasha herself was a Supreme Witch, daughter of the Baba Yaga, and it would be a shame not to grab her very overpowered debuff spell on this particular build. Both Misty Step and Tasha's Hideous Laughter can be cast once per day without expending a spell slot, which we love because we don't have spell slots to spare. And Tasha's Hideous Laughter basically makes a creature fall, to the ground, prone in fits of laughter. They're unable to do anything. They're incapacitated, which is perfect if you can pair it with your Witch's Laugh. At level 5, we're getting level 3 spells. Grab Major Image, which is the big upgrade on our Minor Illusion, and if you've been enjoying using Minor Illusion for tricks and deceit, all kinds of fun little gimmicks, the Major Illusion is going to, or the Major Image, is going to be a big benefit to you. This allows you to add both sight and sound to a particular illusion, increases the area that you can do. You can have an entire carriage appear out of nowhere that shouldn't have been there. Very, very tricksy. As well, I'm going to recommend, if your DM doesn't give you a Broom of Flying, which, I mean, you're playing a witch, like they should give you, you should have a Broom of Flying. They should make that available to you. But if they do not, you're going to want to pick up the Fly spell here so that you can grab a stick of your own or a broom of your own and then cast it and pretend. Because flying on a broomstick is not optional if you're playing witch character. We're also going to get an additional invocation here, and I'm going to recommend the Sign of Ill Omen. The Sign of Ill Omen is going to give us access to a spell that we really, really wanted, but weren't going to get from Warlock, which is, of course, Bestow Curse. Bestow Curse is going to allow you to reach out and touch someone and add a curse to them. They make a saving throw, of course, but this is going to add to our repertoire of debuff, cursey, hexy type things that we're doing. We now have a slate of options available for our concentration, depending on what type of enemy that we're up against, what is the individual situation. We're always going to have something that we can do to make the enemy worse, less powerful, hurting all the time. At turn 6, we're going to double down on this kind of Misty emergency problem. We're going to get Misty Escape from our Archfey subclass, which is basically when we take damage, we become invisible and can teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space that we can see. And we remain invisible until the start of our next turn. This makes us very difficult to pin down, very difficult for the enemy to surround and kill. We are very mobile around the battlefield while we are continuing to place our debuffs on enemies. Here at level 7, we're going to get access to 4th level spells, and this is where we are going to grab some bigger ticket items, right? The king of all debuff spells is Banishment. And Banishment is going to upcast really well, allowing you to do multiple characters with the same casting. And we love upcasting as a warlock because all of our spell slots are going to stay at the same level. So we're grabbing Banishment. It's probably about this point that you are recognizing that you have a lot of different options for a very limited resource, right? Your concentration. You're choosing between Banishment or Bestow Curse or Fly or Major Image or Ray of Enfeeblement or Hex. So we're going to start branching out into non-concentration based things after this, but Banishment really is the top of the charts when it comes to getting rid of an enemy or making them not do as much. In addition to that, I'm going to recommend Blight. It's this beautiful kind of like the rot of nature, really bringing that necrotic damage to the party. This is your big damage burst if you need it, and if they fail their save, it still does a pretty hefty chunk of damage as well. So this is your real Wrath of Nature spell if you need it. We get another invocation at, I believe, 8th level, which is going to allow us to take Sculptor of Flesh to cast Polymorph once per day. So now we are turning people into frogs or toads or newts or whatever we would like, and getting thrown out of the village that we have entered into. At 8th level, I'm going to also recommend a Charisma boost to bring us up to 20. Almost every single spell in our repertoire requires a spell saving throw. So we are going to want to get our DC as high as physically possible. We're going to do that here at level 8. At level 9, we're getting 5th level spells, and we are going to grab Contact Other Plane. This is where I feel as a witchy character, we need to be the envoy from our party to the greater spirits of the unknown. We have a patron who's kind of an archfey patron, and maybe now we are going to use their connections to speak to some other deities or spirits. So we're grabbing Contact Other Plane to be able to speak to beings in other planes of reality. This is a very like witch's brew, surface of the cauldron, bubbles and then clears, and there's a face in there. This is really going to make you be the envoy of the party to the rest of the spiritual realm. I think it's fantastic. We're also going to double down on our ability to manipulate people and change them and make them do things that they don't want to do with our Dominate person. This is the carte blanche. If they fail their saving throw, they are your thrall for as long as you need them to be. And since our spell slots are not going up anymore, we don't need to worry about whether or not it upcasts. Finally, here at level 10, we are grabbing an invocation for Maddening Hex. That's right, we're bringing it all the way back to Hex. At this point, when we cast our Hex with one of our spell slots, it's lasting for days at a time. Really fantastic ability, and is really going to finish off our slate of debuff actions. Now, if they're crazy damage immunities or armor class or something like that, you throw a Maddening Hex that's doing psychic damage over a long period of time. You're wearing them down. And that's the witch. Hexing, cursing, polymorphing, just generally being your enemy's worst nightmare. If you like the build, I'll be putting character sheets for it on my Patreon. You can subscribe for just $1 and get character sheets for the level 1, level 3, and level 10 options. That's the quickest way to play this at your table. And if you like the build and want to see more, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks, guys.